everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sim Kern, pronouns they, them, and I'm an author and a booktuber and all that good stuff. I'm here today to make an exciting announcement and also talk about the first writing convention that I ever went to, the good and the bad. It was mostly good. But there is one kind of squicky thing that happened that I spent the entire drive home obsessing over. And anyways, I'm just in from the drive home. I haven't showered. I smell quite awful. But I wanted to record this video and put my thoughts on what happened out there just before I sort of lose my energy or decide oh, it's not worth it. I really just want to get this off my chest. First, the exciting stuff, which I should have made an announcement video for earlier, which is that I have sold my young adult trilogy. So the first book, Seeds for the Swarm, will be coming out in fall of 2022. And I will put up right now and read to you the publisher's marketplace deal report. So, environmental journalist and author of Depart, Sim Kern's Seeds for the Swarm, in which college students discover a terrible secret about the future climate tech they're researching and turn on the school's billionaire backers, to Selena Middleton at Stelliform Press in a nice deal, in a 3-book deal, for publication in fall of 2022 by Mariah Nichols at DeForio Literary Agency. And if that seemed like a really convoluted sentence and a really awkward way of pitching a book, that's just kind of how Publishers Marketplace deal reports are written. But I'm very excited about this trilogy. This has been a long time coming. I first came up with the idea for it in 2013. So it's been rattling around my head for 8 years now. And I'm so grateful that it sold, that I'll get to write the next 2 books in the trilogy and actually finish this story and get it out of my head. And it really, after this weekend at being at Armadillocon, I heard some horror stories about people working with some of the really big publishers, and I'm actually quite grateful that it sold to a small press, because I have a very radical, anti-capitalist, anarchist vision for what I want to do with these books. And I'm quite worried I wouldn't have had the freedom to explore that with some bigger publishers. So even though there was kind of a heartbreaking moment where we were in acquisitions at a big publishing house and the editor really loved it, and we were told by the sales team that the sales team wouldn't buy it because they would not buy, they said they were wary of acquiring YA with climate themes. So just the fact that it's a YA book dealing with climate change, they didn't think they could sell it. And that kind of fires me up to prove them wrong. So even though losing out at that acquisitions meeting was kind of heartbreaking, I'm really quite glad with how it all planned out. I'm really excited to be publishing with Stelliform Press again. I had a great experience working with them on Depart, and I'm really excited to finish that series. Now on to what is going to be the bulk of this video, which is talking about my first ever writing convention that I got to attend this week. And it's also my first ever in-person author event because I debuted during the pandemic. I started writing when I had a baby, an infant, and a toddler, and so I was never able to go to anything before. So this was my first con. Not my first con ever. I'd gone to sci-fi conventions in the past as a fan, but never as a writer invited to come and read and speak on panels and stuff. I had a blast. Just overall, it was a wonderful experience. I met so many writers. It was in Austin. It's Armadillocon in Austin. They had a wonderful, they have a wonderful sci-fi and fantasy writing community there. I will mention, I would not have gone if they weren't being, very careful about COVID. Everyone had to have proof of vaccination or a negative test, which is within 3 days before. And everyone I talked to was vaccinated because we're sci-fi people. Why? I don't know. I feel like we're the kind of people who trust science. So everyone had to do that. We were all wearing masks unless you were on a panel or in the bar and the restaurant areas, obviously. But otherwise, everyone was really great about always wearing masks. I knew that writing was lonely, obviously, but until you get around other writers, you almost don't notice how incredibly lonely it is and how amazing it is to get to meet other writers and talk to other writers who are going through the same things, who are passionate about the same things, and have these conversations. It feels like medicine, you know? And everyone was like so warm and loving and exciting, and like excited to help you with your career, and you're excited to help with their career. Like the opposite of like I don't know if y'all have read the like bad art friend story that came out or any of the discourse around it, but it seems like the literary writing world is like very competitive and stab each other in the back. That's definitely not the vibe here. Like the sci-fi and fantasy writers, at least in like, it was like mostly people from Houston, Austin, and Dallas. Everyone's like really just cheering each other on, it seems like, for the most part. So, you know, and I also got to moderate panels for the first time and participate on panels. And I love it. I think I'm quite good at it too. It reminds me a lot of like running departmental meetings when I was a content director in schools. Like, you know, I think to be a good panel moderator, you have to be willing to like cut someone off when they start going down a rabbit hole. And I can do that. And just like, oh, okay, let's get back on track. And listen to the panels I was on. Each one was such a fun topic. So genre fiction as activism, climate fiction, hope punk. That one was maybe my favorite. Writing a non-binary character, and how to sell your first book. Those were the 5 panels that I was on. Every one of them was like just such a great experience, such a fun conversation. Loved the exchanging ideas with other authors and interacting with audience members. I tended to run my panels, I think, a little bit more interactive than some of the others that I went on, because I think the audience should also get to say stuff sometimes and ask some of the questions and things. So really had a great time having those conversations, and through that process met other writers who are working in really similar spaces as me, interested in using genre fiction to do activism, you know, trying to write hopeful, solar punk or abolitionist fiction. So that was really cool, you know. Loved those conversations. Just socially also, it was amazing to, again, just like make these relationships and friendships and connect. You know, I met someone I've known from Twitter for a long time, but I have a hard time remembering people on Twitter, and it's just not the same as a real connection, obviously. But this person is also like a non-binary house spouse like me, and we both kind of have, I don't know, similar stories in a lot of ways, and we had a lot in common. That was like a really cool connection. I met someone who went to Oberlin at the same time as me, Kat Parker, who is writing an amazing, she's finishing up what sounds like a really amazing werewolf book, but it's really about Black women healing from trauma. The plot sounds so cool. I hope that she'll let me beta read it for her. And if not, I'll just be really excited to support her career moving forward. But it was just wild that we were actually at Oberlin at the same time, and, you know, got to reminisce about all that and everything. And then something I told myself before the con was, I was like, I really want to make friends with non-binary writers and women writers, and I'm going to kind of ignore everyone else. That was my plan, at least. But like just getting to meet a lot of other writers who are women or non-binary, trans, you know, those relationships are like especially valuable to me. And something that was like really moving to me was like, there was one day, and I don't think that these people realize how much it meant to me. Like I was sitting outside to get warm because the con was really, really cold inside. So I was just like sitting out in the sun to get warm. And these 3 older people invited me over, 2 women and a non-binary person. And they're my mom's age. And they invited me over just to sit with them for a while and chat. It was like a 20-minute conversation. But I just had this feeling of like, oh my God, like I want to be your sci-fi kid, you know, like I want to be adopted, because those of you who've like been following my story for a while, like my mom has gotten sucked into QAnon and has disowned me for being an Antifa terrorist. My in-laws also don't speak to us anymore. They're Trumpers. They found out through the internet, I think, that I came out as trans, and they no longer interact. So the only like older person, I also had like a mom who was like kind of an adoptive Jewish mom, like a friend of the family. And she, though, is a very big supporter of Israel. And because of all my activism for Palestine, I don't really think she wants to have a relationship with me anymore. So I don't have any like older maternal presence in my life. And like just getting to hang out with like, I don't know, older women sci-fi writers, like all the respect in the world, and their mentorship and offers to like read for me and stuff was like just so valuable, and like really, really touched my heart in a deep way. So I'm very excited to like continue to learn from them. And, you know, and then the con is, though, obviously like overwhelmingly like older cis white men, because it's science fiction and that's kind of the thing. But I also made, you know, a lot of friends with like other parents and stuff. Some other dads of kids was really, you know, really cool. We were able to like kind of connect about raising older kids in this world, There were a couple things that I think the con could have done better. A little feedback. The first was, it was really disheartening to show up and find that they did not have my book in the dealer's room. And I had been assured by one of the organizers that they would. So apparently it was just like a miscommunication, signals crossed thing, but the dealer is sort of independent from the con. And the dealer usually gets everyone's book, but had a more limited budget this year. Didn't end up ordering my book and some of the other authors who were there who weren't like the featured guests. It was really disappointing. I was so excited to like see my book on a table, because I've never like seen it on a table before, except in like pictures of certain indie bookstores around the country. But I don't think the indie bookstore here carries it on the table. And I've never just seen it on a table. So I was so excited to like go in and see it, and then like my heart sinking into my gut when I found it wasn't there. And then, oh no, they don't have any copies at all. And like, I would have brought copies. My publisher would have been happy to send copies and then, you know, send back whatever sells. Like if I had just known, I would have made sure there were copies there, because I did a reading and a bunch of people wanted to buy the book, and I had to be like, well, you can get it online. And then I was also scheduled to do a signing, and I just sat there like, you know, twiddling my thumbs, like, because there's nothing for me to sign. No one's coming. The other thing the con could have done better was I had to do this to my badge and my little name card that they gave me. The first night when I got there, I was immediately ma'amed by one of the people checking me into the con. And when I corrected him, he was like, oh, sorry, Enigma. Which he said it in the way of like an old boomer dude being like, oh, you young people and your exhausting genders, you know. But I actually think Enigma like would be a very cool replacement for sir and ma'am. But he did not mean it in like a very generous way. Not a great start to the con off the bat. And like I went out to dinner with a friend in Austin and asked to borrow a Sharpie so that I could write this on my badge. First of all, it was like a very busy background and then like orange lettering. So it was almost impossible to read anybody's name on the badges. You had to like really get awkwardly close to their like crotch area and squint to try to read what people's names were. And then no one had their pronouns listed anywhere. I added mine a little aggressively. I was feeling a little bit peeved about it. So obviously, if you want to be an inclusive con, which I know they want to do, you're having panels about, you know, effectively writing trans characters, you know, good representation. You're inviting trans authors to come and speak. Having pronouns printed on people's badges and name cards should be a given. And obviously some of the older, saltier, old guard, sad puppy sci-fi writers may not like it, and tough shit. If you're committed to being an inclusive con, like that's pretty basic. You should be doing that in 2021. So those are really my only major gripes. And like, other than that, I think, you know, I just had a wonderful time. Like I said, it was all super awesome. However, there was one thing that happened that was just a little bit yucky, and I was like obsessively thinking about it the entire drive home, and I decided to make this video. And when I went to the con, I was thinking like, I was kind of thinking my goals to myself, and I was thinking something like this might happen, which was again why I was like, I'm just gonna hang out with the women and the non-binary folks. But everyone's hanging out together, you know, and also men tend to dominate a conversation. So you end up interacting with men and befriending men. And cis men, I mean, I'm talking about. And another one of the things that I told myself was I don't want to start any drama. I don't want to start any beefs. I'm just gonna be super nice to everybody. And if there's someone whose vibe I don't like, I'll just like move away. But when I really think about it, I think this isn't me starting drama because this other person did something inappropriate. So they started the drama. And me talking about it in this forum on YouTube, you know, I'm not going to go to Twitter. I'm not going to name them. I don't want to get them canceled. I don't want to destroy their career or anything like that. I don't think the situation warrants that. But I think it was a little bit yucky. Like I said, it was just kind of a little bit of a yucky thing that happened. And I'm doing lots of prefacing now. I'll get into it, what it was in a second. But I want to share it because I think it's probably something that happens very commonly. And I want to talk about how it affected me. And I want to talk about how I in the moment, I wasn't ready to respond to it, even though I kind of thought something like this might happen. But I just spent the whole drive home deciding how I'm going to respond to this in the future and what kind of author I want to be and how I'm going to let other people, you know, interact with me. And I think that might be useful to some other people. Yeah, again, I'm not going to name the person. Don't ask me to name the person. There are people who were like there when this happened who may be able to figure out who it is. And there may be a little bit of like whisper network stuff because of that. And if that happens, I'm sorry, that's the consequences of this person doing this thing in a public place, which was inappropriate. So yeah, I don't think that's me starting drama. I just think this is me making my boundaries very clear to the entire world and talking about what is appropriate and inappropriate behavior at a con, which is ultimately a professional place. So one of the people that I ended up really clicking with was a dude. We had a lot in common. He came to my reading, I went to his reading, and I really liked his writing. Like really thought I can learn a lot from this person. It's important to note in this story that also he has achieved a relatively higher level of success. He's further along in his career. He's achieved a higher level of success than I have. And I think that it is really important to always be aware of that power dynamic when you're interacting with people at cons. And gender and power dynamics, right? So it's important to this story that he was a cis guy and I'm a non-binary person who's assigned female at birth, and like the power dynamic there too also matters hugely to the context. Okay, so all that happened was, I'm not going to minimize like it. Well, here's what happened. So we were hanging out all day and we were getting along great. I mean, we were like just like really vibing, really clicking. Okay. Now, and this also doesn't really matter it doesn't matter that I'm married. It doesn't matter. Like, if I was single, what happened, like, still would be inappropriate, you know what I mean? But also, I'm married, I'm monogamously married, I'm disgustingly happy in my marriage. Like, and I had mentioned, I can't not mention my kids or, you know, my family or my husband. Like, I just end up mentioning them. So this person was very aware that I'm married. And I understand there are polyamorous marriages, but I don't think you should ever assume that about someone unless, you know, they make it clear. Anyways, we're hanging out a lot and it's a very intense thing, right? Because when you're at a con, and this was a smaller con, it was like depressed attendance because of COVID. It's not that many people. So you're just kind of hanging out all day for like 2 days straight. And then in the evening you're drinking and it's, you know, social and you're hanging out. So we had, the bar closed like weirdly early. So we went up to somebody's room and it's a hotel room and it's like full of people. And we're all just having like the most amazing talks about writing and publishing and this and that and everything, you know, and like just, the best conversations. Like I was having so much fun. And a huge part of that fun was this person that I'm like really clicking with on like an artistic level and also just like a life experiences level. You know, we're just really clicking and I'm there to make friends with everybody and give the benefit of the doubt to everybody. However, also like this is a single guy and I knew that he was like a single straight cis guy. And I have a whole lot of experiences with single straight cis guys, but I don't want to just like immediately rule out a friendship as impossible because you are that, although this becomes yet another data point in the billions of data points I have before that indeed the one type of person that I am incapable of having a friendship with is a cis straight guy who's single. Maybe all cis straight guys, but I'm not ready to throw them all to the moon anyways. So we're hanging out and we're talking, and it's getting very late, and first he touches my arm, like my elbow. And this had happened earlier in the night. This was before we went up to the hotel room. We were talking and he had just like touched me on the arm in a conversation, like to be emphatic, on the arm. And I did register it. It was like a little bing went off in my head, like, oh, okay. But sometimes people touch each other on the arms. It just registered is all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say like touching someone on the arm when you're having a heated conversation, when you're leaning close, is always inappropriate. But that had happened earlier. I think he touched me on the arm twice. And we're in the hotel room, and so we're sitting on the floor, and everyone's pretty close because it's like a whole bunch of people trying to fit in a tiny hotel room. And we're talking, and he touches me on the leg, on the knee, okay? And it's just like we're talking, and he's like making a point. He leans in towards me and does this for like maybe about that long, like touch, knee, press, and like back off. And the first time it happened, I was like, you know, oh, like, I don't know. Immediately there was like another like bing in my head, and it was like, oh, that sucks. But my brain was already scrambling to like apologize for it and be like, this is okay, because here I am like having so much fun. I'm having this amazing conversation. We've been clicking all day. I don't want to start drama. So like, that's fine. Just like touch my knee. Maybe he's just a touchy guy. And actually I was thinking back, and there, like, I had seen him like leaning on the shoulder of another dude earlier in the day. And I was like, oh, maybe he's just like a touchy-feely guy. And maybe he is. And that's why I'm not going to tell you what his name is. And then it happened 4 more times, probably in the space of about 20 minutes, half an hour of conversation. He leaned over and pressed my knee and put his hand on my knee 4 or 5 times. And that's flirting, right? And obviously at this point I was like, okay, he's flirting, he's attracted to me, he's like, this is kind of, he's making a move, we're all drinking. It's I did not realize how late it was like close to 2 a.m. when this happened. But anyways, once it started happening a couple times in a row, as it kept happening, I became very uncomfortable. And it was the kind of thing where like the subroutine at the front of my brain, the like socializing subroutine, like kept going. And I was just like still like smiling and nodding and like, you know, appearing to have a really good time. But in the back of my mind, it was like my ears are ringing and I'm having a trauma response because, and if you think that like touching someone on the knee like that is not a big deal, again, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people watching this who think that. So let me try to explain like why it would trigger a trauma response, why it is a big deal at a con, which is technically a professional setting, even though it's late at night and you're drinking and everyone's socializing. Like, this is a cis man. He has more success than me. He has more power than me in this community. He has more clout than me in this community. Think about all the movies where like a boss's hand on a secretary's knee and zoom in on that moment. Like, that's a thing. I know he knows that was a thing. I know that was a sexual touch, and you have to just like it was a flirtatious thing, and you have to trust me that it was. And the reason it caused such a trauma response in me, I think, is because I have like this very specific trauma of being roofied by a friend of mine. So when I was in college, when I was in my first year at Harvard, a friend of mine who I volunteered mentoring youth with invited me over to his dorm for drinks. And I went, and I thought it was gonna be me and him, not for drinks actually. He invited me over to watch Dark Side of Oz, which is where you like watch The Wizard of Oz with Dark Side of the Moon playing, and it's like supposed to match up. And we drank, and we were drinking beer, and I drank 1 beer while I was there. And I set it down to go outside to smoke because I was smoking cigarettes at the time. And when I came back in, I finished the beer, and I had left it open in there. And this was at a time where there was a like, and it's probably still going on, but there was like a serial roofing problem at Harvard. It was a hugely known and unspoken thing. This was also the year Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook at Harvard. It was that year. Date rape was just like, it had happened to many people I knew. So I came back in, my drink had been left there open, which was, not good survival instincts on my part. But it was just me and this guy that I mentored youth with. I just felt comfortable. I didn't think about it. And then I came back in, I finished the beer, we're watching Dark Side of Oz, and all of a sudden, these football players start showing up. And this guy is like a little Weasley guy, the friend that I was with. He was like a little Weasley dude, and I had no idea that he was friends with these football players, but they lived on his floor in this dorm. All of a sudden, like, fast forward, there's this giant football player on the couch next to me. There's like 5 other football players in the room, and then the dude. And I'm sitting on the futon, and all of it, and I've had 1 beer, and I'm fucked up all of a sudden. And I'm like losing consciousness. And then the football player who is sitting next to me puts this giant, meaty football fucking player's hand on my knee. Probably the same knee that this guy was touching. Anyways, in that moment, like, all the alarm bells went off, and I realized, like, oh my God, I've been drugged. And all these dudes are here to probably gang rape me. And I like concentrated. So I was like losing control of my body. And I was like, my shoes were off, and they were like flip-flops. And they were on the couch in front of me, and I stared at them for a really long time. And then I had to like will myself so hard to be able to just like, I was just like, if you can just get your feet in the flip-flops, then we'll get out of here. And somehow I did it, and I like got my shoes on, and I like went to the bathroom, which was like, it was like a dorm. So it was like a dorm bathroom. Thank God. I ran into a girl I knew from class. I didn't even know this girl. I don't know her name. I don't think I knew it then, but I recognized her from class. And I was like, oh my God, please, I'm fucked up. Please help me get home. And I had to take a shuttle to get home. It was like across like a remote campus thing. Anyway, she got me home. I blacked out at that point. After I ran into that girl, like, I blacked out. Somehow, she saved me. Like, she got me home. And I remember and then I remember, like, I was like leaning over the toilet, and she got me to like make myself throw up into the toilet. And that was like the next thing I remember. And that whole, like, however I got home is just like a void. So anyways, that happened. When you're a cis dude at a con, you have to understand, like, the amount of trauma that non-cis dudes have. And that you're in a professional place, and that you can't just go hitting on someone like that. So he touched me on the knee like 5 times in this room full of people. And I start having this like trauma response. And then I'm feeling immediately like humiliated, because everyone else can see that he's doing this to me. Everyone else knows that I'm married. I'm not stopping him because we have this like deep social conditioning of like, don't make a scene. Swallow the indignity so that you don't damage his reputation. That is so deeply ingrained in us. And I thought a lot about on the drive home, like, what would I do? What do I wish I would have done? I wish I would have just in the moment. And what I'm going to do, I've tried to like write this subroutine now. So if this ever happens again, and again, I don't want to think, oh God, I can't touch anyone. If you're trying to get someone's attention and they're having a conversation, and you like a tap on the arm, that's probably fine. If you're a woman or if you're a queer person and you touch me, I'm probably going to be fine with it. But then there's like the hand on the small of the back. There's like the hand on the knee. This is unwanted touch, and I just met you yesterday. Like, we do not have this worked out between us. If it happens again, even if it's at a con, even if it's in front of a bunch of people, I've decided, I'm going to say, oh, don't touch me. Like, just like that. That's what I'm going to say. And I want you to know that I'm going to say that to you. I want people to know I'm not going to fuck around this. If you touch me in a way I don't like, I don't care how public it is. I don't care if we're on a panel. I don't care if there's a microphone on. I'm going to say, oh, don't touch me. Or if I really want to draw it out, I might say something like, oh, you don't have my consent to touch my knee right now. Or just, oh, you don't have my consent to touch the small of my back. And then I'm trying to think it through in my mind, right? Because you got to have these subroutines ready, because they go against our conditioning to just swallow the indignity, right? And then if they say back to you, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean anything by it, da-da-da, to resist the urge to be like, oh, it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. So I think I'll just like do that. And then maybe just go back to the conversation we were having, like go back to the topic that we had before and like, can this person take that correction, or will they just have a meltdown about it? But now, instead of like me taking on the like shame and indignity of it and me obsessing about it the whole way home, like, did he mean it sexual? Was that a come on? Like, was that okay? I feel weird about it, but like, can I trust this person now? And you have to see when that happened, it's like, we've spent 2 days talking. We've talked about reading each other's work. This is someone that I was hoping would like, you know, maybe be willing to blurb for me later. This is someone who's kind of promised to like help me forward in my career. Now I have to wonder, is all of that coming with strings attached? Is all of his interest in me simply sexual? All of a sudden, all that help he could have given me in my career is worthless to me. And it wouldn't have been when I was younger. And that's the other reason I want to make this video, because I think when I was like 22 and single, if this had happened, I very well might have ended up sleeping with him, even if I felt absolutely no attraction to him whatsoever. Simply because I was like, oh my God, he's further ahead of me in my career. He wants it. I can throw him this bone figuratively. And that's what I just need to do. And I'll just disassociate and it'll be fine. I did that like a lot before Me Too. Like when I was 22, like that's how my brain worked. And like if a dude wanted something from me, I felt like often obligated to give it to him, especially when there's like a power dynamic like this, where it's like this person is promising to help you move forward. Now, as a 35-year-old with all the trauma that I've processed and worked through, like absolutely not. If you make me feel uncomfortable in this way, I'm going to like put it right back on you. And that's why I'm making this video, because I had to spend the whole drive home obsessing about this and thinking about it. And I'm just going to put it out in the world so that he's the one who should feel uncomfortable about it. He's the one that was doing something that was inappropriate. So don't do a touch. If you are a cis, straight man, if you're anyone and you have relative power over the person you're talking to, if you're anyone in a professional setting, and I'm sorry, a con is a professional setting, you don't do a touch unless you're really certain and have obtained like verbal confirmation that touch is wanted. And again, I'm not talking about like a tap on the arm, hey, I gotta go, but you know, there's a difference between the flirtatious sexual innuendo touch and the like quick, I'm like getting your attention or something, or oh, hey, are you cool with a hug? We're both coming in for a hug. And actually I did get some hugs this week where someone was like, oh, it was so nice meeting you. Are you cool with a hug? And it's like both on a COVID level and a bodily consent level, right? And now listen, I know people have like met their spouses at cons, right? There are people who go to cons looking to find a connection with someone who shares a similar interest. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to necessarily make that connection, but you don't go to the level of like touching someone to negotiate that. And I was thinking a lot on this drive as well about how these, like the rules that we have for flirting allow the people with more power in sexual encounters, right? And just more power in society in general. It provides them cover to make inappropriate sexual advances, and they can always get away with it like, oh, I didn't know, I was just like flirting. Here's what I think should happen. If you're talking to someone at a con and you're vibing with them and you think they may be vibing with you and you're interested in something romantic or sexual with them, I think you need to negotiate that verbally before you start making these sort of fuzzy, vague sexual advances, and like certainly before like starting to touch them a bunch. It's saying something like maybe checking in and being like, hey, I'm really feeling a connection for you. I'm here to find some kind of like romantic connection. Are you interested in that? Like check in, right? And don't make assumptions. And then I'm married, I'm married and I'm monogamous, and like nothing to like, no judgment to polyamorous people. I think that's great and awesome, but I'm super monogamous. Like I'm absolutely, monogamy is working out great for me. When you meet someone who's married, I don't think you should be like coming on to them unless you know they're polyamorous. And again, if you're at a con, which is a professional setting, if you want to like engage in a flirtation that might go somewhere else, check in that other person is looking for that. And you know what I mean? And if you're not comfortable saying out loud, hey, I feel like we're vibing, I'd like to flirt with you. Is this flirting? Like, if you can't say something like that, like, then why would you just start doing it? Then there's a reason you feel uncomfortable saying that, right? There's a reason these taboos on being that direct, and making flirting into this game of like innuendo that allows people with the relative sexual power, right, like cis men, to violate your boundaries, to, take it to like take it closer and closer and closer to like a really overt sexual come on, and just be like, oh, I misinterpreted. I thought you were flirting, because we were just like laughing at each other's jokes and having a conversation. Like that's the only encouragement this guy got from me was like just friendship. The same thing that I was putting out for like everybody else at the con. Like, I enjoy your company. We're vibing. We get along. We like a lot of the same stuff. We have a similar sense of humor. That's friendship. I'm sorry, that's not flirting, that's friendship. So it's just such a fucking shame, because like, I know it's just, and then that night, so it started happening. It happened like 5 times. And then I was just like, I'm starting to feel really uncomfortable. What time is it? Oh my God, it's 2 a.m. I gotta go. And again, that like front subroutine socializing part of my brain was just like, bye, really nice to meet everyone. I hugged this person goodbye. We were just saying our farewells. I didn't, make a scene or anything, which again, but I really want everyone who interacts with me to know that I will in the future not make a scene. If you touch me in a way I don't like, I'm going to say, don't touch me. That's where it ended. This person doesn't know. Maybe this person will like find their way to this video. Maybe not. And maybe I should send it to them, because their behavior like could be predatory. It could be that, again, if I had been a much younger person, I would have felt obligated to continue allowing it to happen, to take it even further and further and further. And I've had so many heartbreaks over friendships that I had with men that were like really, really important to me. And this was like a teeny one, right? This was like 2 days, whatever. But it opens old wounds, because so many friendships that lasted for years, where I knew though that the guy was attracted to me, and he, over the course of the relationship, would like do things like this and touch me, or flirt, and it would get closer and closer and closer, until I had to like overtly reject someone. Like one time, a friend of mine, I was like crashing at like a band's house, and I was like sleeping at on a mattress on the floor, and this dude started like dragging the mattress towards his bedroom, like trying to drag me off. He was really drunk, and it was like sort of pathetic and comical, but also sort of like threatening, like, oh my God, you literally tried to drag me into your bedroom. Like, and then that friendship's over, and it's like, you thought these people cared about you and they listen to you, everything, and the whole time it's just friend zone. And then you find out like, oh, your entire relationship was meaningless. It was just like an avenue to get sex or whatever. And then eventually they just ghost you, those dudes, once they force you into like rejecting them in a very conclusive way. And yeah, so it's just really disappointing that this kind of thing is still happening to me at 35, that it happens like in a professional setting. And then like I said, I would have really loved the like working writerly relationship with this person, but that's all trash to me now. Like, any blurb he could give me, I would be like, does he really like this book, or is he just trying to get my hands? Any feedback he would give me on the story, I would be like, is this coming from a place of earnestness, or is there some kind of manipulation trying to happen here? Like, there's nothing he can do for me that's worth, again, me swallowing any kind of indignity or like feeling uncomfortable about what his intentions are. Oh, there's one other thing. There was an older woman in the room. an older woman writer, and she was actually talking that night and kind of went on a little rant about how alcohol, and I didn't catch the context of this, but she went on like a little rant about how alcohol is never an excuse for bad behavior. I almost wondered in the moment, like, did she see the knee touch? Is she talking to me? Like, alcohol is not an excuse for bad behavior, and drinking does not change the fact that, like, you are interacting with strangers, you are interacting at a con, you need to be aware of the power dynamics of who you are interacting with. Don't make people feel uncomfortable. Don't do a touch. Don't touch women on the knee. Don't touch non-binary people on the knee. Don't do it. There was something that made me feel really gendered by it too. It was just really didn't like it. So it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. I hope this was helpful. It sucks. It sucks that this is what I was thinking about the whole drive home, and that this is the thing I felt like I needed to address the most. Like, I wasn't thinking about all the amazing ideas I got about writing science fiction and fantasy and all the positive stuff. It's like, this was what I've sort of been fixated on. But at least now I know what my boundaries are going to be and how I'm going to respond to these situations, which I think, unfortunately, like, it's very inevitable they're going to happen again. And I know about myself now that I want to be a part of changing that culture and making it unacceptable. And do not fuck with me in this way. Do not come on to me at a con, like, unless you obtain my, which I can't imagine happening, because again, I'm very happily monogamously married. Like, unless you have my verbal consent to perform a flirt with me, don't do it. And me interacting with you is not encouragement for you to do that. So be warned. Get excited for Seeds for the Swarm, which is coming out in fall of 2022. If you want to read my already published book, it's called Depart Depart. It was, this is also something I forgot to announce. It was on the honor list for the Otherwise Award this year, which is an award that recognizes books that are expanding the boundaries of gender, I think is the description. So definitely, you should buy and check out Depart Depart. You should get excited for Seeds for the Swarm. I will be making announcements about, like, cover and pre-orders and all that stuff as it unfolds over the course of this year. And I'm hoping to be more regular about posting stuff to YouTube. If you're someone who I met at Armadillocon and you're worried, like, oh my God, was this me? Like, you would know if it was. And I absolutely loved everyone that I met this weekend. And there was only this one yucky incident. And, like, all of you were so fabulous. And your kindness and welcoming and support was just, like, meant the world to me. So thank you so much. And I will see you next time. Like and subscribe. Bye.